Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty substantial. We've got this source text, and I have to say, it might be one of the most, well, densely packed theological frameworks we've looked at.
Oh, absolutely. It's trying to weave together everything, isn't it? From, the very first spark of creation right through to the ultimate final destiny of the entire cosmos.
Exactly. It's not just asking why are we here, it's laying out this incredibly detailed system. It covers divine authority, what creation is, and this really tricky balance between, fate and free choice.
And that's our mission today for you listening. We want to kind of pull out the underlying structure, the skeleton of this whole thing, so you can get a really solid grasp of this entire metaphysical view.
Right. And the key to unlocking it all, according to these sources, seems to start right at the very beginning. It's all about one specific fundamental relationship.
That's the core thesis, yeah. The absolute primacy of divine love, specifically the Father's love for the Son, for Christ.
So it's not about power first or creation just happening.
No, not primarily. What's fascinating is how the sources frame existence itself as relational from the get-go. Creation isn't just God flexing his power, it's described as an overflow of love. The Father loves the Son.
Okay.
And crucially, the text says, all of creation exists solely for the Son. That's like principle number one.
Wow. Okay. That really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? It's not human-centric at all. It's sun-centric.
Exactly. If the whole universe, everything in it, exists for the Son, then all the rules, the physics, the moral commands, everything has to serve that one single purpose.
That makes sense. It's the grounding principle for everything else.
It's the existential bedrock. Life isn't independent. It only comes through the Son. The sources really emphasize this creation, keeping things going, subsistence. It's not just cosmic clockwork.
It's an ongoing act.
Yes, continuous acts, all rooted in that foundational love between the Father and the Son.
So if the Son is the channel, the purpose, the reason, then just being here is already participating in that love, mediated through him.
Precisely. And that understanding, that primary relationship is really the key. It unlocks how the sources explain everything else, especially life and judgment.
Right, because if it all flows through the Son,
Then rejecting the Son isn't just like disagreeing with the doctrine. The sources portray it as, well, ontological suicide sounds dramatic, but it's like actively cutting yourself off from the very power source keeping you in existence.
which leads us straight into the consequences, doesn't it? Section 2, the mechanism of life and judgment. If the Son is the standard for existence, what happens if someone, actively chooses not to accept that?
The result is immediate and absolute, according to this text, severance. It's unwavering on this. Rejecting the Son means rejecting the Father's love, the very basis of reality.
So it's not punishment in the sense of anger, but
More like a mechanical consequence. You remove yourself from the life source, and judgment follows inevitably. It's built into the system.
and the standard for that judgment becomes incredibly clear because of the Son's incarnation, right? Him
Yeah.
actually becoming a creature.
Exactly. That act establishes the benchmark. It's not some abstract legal code. It's based on a real life, lived perfectly within creation. That sets the standard.
Well, the judgment isn't arbitrary.
Not at all. The sources boil it down to something starkly simple. Accept the Son, you live. Reject him, you die. But there's a whole process of communication involved here, too.
How so?
Well, God communicates his will to creatures, and creatures are given this dignity of choice. If you accept that communicated will, the sources say you gain a deeper, richer understanding of what divine love actually is.
So the choice has to be genuine. God has to communicate clearly enough for a real choice to be made.
Absolutely. It has to respect free will. And this is where the text gets really nuanced about the cross, about what that act signifies and who it's for.
Okay, tell us more about that distinction. Who is the love shown on the cross intended for in this view?
It's specifically for those who choose to accept it, those who freely submit to the standard it represents. But here's the crucial part. The sources are explicit that this love is not for offenders.
Offenders meaning?
People who reject it, who want to, quote, trample upon that love. Or maybe those who try to use it like a get-out-of-jail-free card, trying to avoid the consequences while still planning to continue doing harmful things, especially to their neighbor.
That's a really powerful reframing. So the cross isn't a universal solvent for consequence regardless of intent?
Not according to this framework. It acts more like a double-edged sword. It's the ultimate display of grace and love for those who repent and accept.
But for those who don't,
For those who don't, who choose to ignore the basic commandments, especially loving your neighbor, the cross becomes Exhibit A in their judgment. It's damning evidence.
How so? Because they saw the ultimate love and rejected it anyway.
Precisely. They can't plead ignorance. They witnessed the absolute pinnacle of divine love made manifest, yet they consciously chose malice, self-interest, disobedience. Their rejection is made worse by knowing what they turned down.
So the cross doesn't wipe the slate clean for the deliberately malicious. Instead, it actually confirms the justice of the judgment against them. It proves God's integrity.
It confirms that God went to the absolute limit to offer reconciliation. The sacrifice itself highlights just how serious the rejection is. You can't claim to accept the Son's love while simultaneously rejecting the fundamental moral law he embodied.
Wow. Okay.
And this tension between offered love and necessary judgment naturally leads us into what might be the biggest philosophical knot in this whole system.
Ah, yes. The classic paradox, free will versus predestination.
Exactly. If God knows everything, knows the end from the beginning before anything was even made, how can our choices right here, right now, be genuinely free? Are we just acting out a script?
It feels like the ultimate tightrope walk. How does the source handle this?
It walks it very, very carefully. It starts by putting huge emphasis on God's respect for free will. He gave it to creatures. It's inviolable. God never forces obedience.
The text uses a specific phrase, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Control. He does not coerce.
Right. Creatures choose, obey, or rebel.
Oh, yeah.
And they must face the consequences of that choice. The choice is presented as absolutely real, and the results are earned, not imposed unfairly.
Okay, so genuine choice is affirmed. But then, almost in the same breath.
Then comes election and pre-knowledge. Yes. The source states that before creation, God already knew and chose certain individuals.
So how? How do you hold both? Genuine choice and pre-selection. It sounds contradictory. Is the choice just for show?
The way the source tries to reconcile this is by defining the basis of God's choice. It's not arbitrary selection. Election here is rooted in God's foreknowledge.
Foreknowledge of what?
Foreknowledge of who would, in their complete freedom, choose to obey Christ. It's not God saying, I pick you no matter what. It's more like, I see you. I know that you, exercising your own free will choose to align yourself with my Son.
Okay, so God's knowledge confirms the outcome, but the choosing, the act itself, is still the creature's. Election, then, means being chosen because you will submit.
That seems to be the core idea. Those who will submit are the ones foreknown and chosen for adoption.
So logically, the submission comes before the adoption, even if chronologically the foreknowledge came before creation.
Exactly. Adoption, becoming Anya, grants this eternal status, this inheritance, but it's conditional on that foreseen, genuinely free alignment of the will.
That definition foreseen submission might resolve the paradox from God's perspective, maybe. But for us, living in time, it creates a huge practical problem, doesn't it?
Oh, massively. The uncertainty of election. How can anyone know for sure if their current faith, their current acceptance is the real deal, the kind God foreknew, or is it just temporary?
We can't exactly peek into the book of life, can we?
No. And the sources use some stark examples to really drive this uncertainty home. Think about Paul, used to be Saul, right?
Yeah.
A violent enemy of the faith, yet clearly chosen.
And then Judas, right there in the inner circle. Seemingly chosen.
But definitively not chosen, according to the text.
Mm-hmm.
So outward appearances, even being close to Jesus physically, that's not the ultimate test.
So if the final decision is sort of hidden from us in time, what's the practical measure? How can anyone assess where they stand?
The only reliable indicator offered is consistency. Consistency of action, what the source calls the fruits of obedience. And it gives a pretty stern warning here.
Which is?
If someone says they believe, even if they sound really passionate about it, but their actions are consistently wicked, malice, causing strife, harming others, trampling their neighbor, as the text puts it,
And
then the sources strongly suggest they're likely not among the chosen.
Yeah.
Deeds become the external proof, the evidence of whether that internal submission is genuine or not.
It's not just believing the right things, then. It's a fundamental reordering of how you live.
It has to be. But then the sources address that really difficult category. People who seem chosen, seem to believe for a while, but then fall away. They're called ojo, those who depart from the faith.
What about them? Does that mean God's choice wasn't final?
This is where the source material sets a very high, almost severe standard for what authentic election means.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that those who believe for a time and then genuinely fall away were probably never truly chosen to begin with.
Never truly chosen, so their initial faith wasn't real.
That seems to be the implication. Their names, if they were sort of provisionally written down, might be blotted out of the book of life. Yangang, yangang, kangan. which retroactively confirms they weren't authentically adopted in the first place.
Wow, that's quite a heavy implication. Failing to endure isn't just a slip-up, it's proof the foundation was flawed from the start.
It frames true adoption, true and pernicious, as eternally secure, but only for those who meet that criterion of genuine, foreseen, persistent submission. For those who fall away, the text explicitly says the cleansing power of Christ's blood no longer applies.
Why not?
Because they actively rejected the covenant. They stepped outside the agreement, outside that relational structure, by their own will.
It always comes back to the will, doesn't it?
It seems to. Though the source does offer a slightly different angle too, maybe a softer interpretation, to try and reconcile pre-chosen with falling away.
What's that alternative?
It acknowledges the possibility that maybe God predetermined before creation to adopt anyone who comes to Christ through faith. Like the door is open to all who enter.
So election is potentially universal, but conditional.
Conditional on staying in, essentially. But the outcome for those who fall away is the same in this model too. The cleansing power of the blood stops working for them because their willful rejection breaks the condition. They remove themselves from that potentially adopted status.
So whether you see it as never really chosen or chosen conditionally but failed the condition, the end result is the same, and it hinges on the individual's rebellious choice.
Exactly. That rebellious choice confirms their unchosen status one way or another. The source consistently upholds that human will is the deciding factor in our temporal experience, even with God's overarching foreknowledge. The struggle is real for us.
Right. Okay, to make this less abstract, the sources provide two really crucial case studies, examples of free will going disastrously wrong. Adam and Hillel. Let's start with Adam. The sources frame his failure primarily as getting his priorities wrong, right? A failure of love.
Yeah, it's often boiled down to just eating the fruit. But the sources stress the command was simple. Don't eat or you'll die. Very clear. His failure wasn't that he didn't understand. It was a failure of his will.
He didn't prioritize God's command.
He prioritized his affection for a creature, Eve, over his love and obedience to the Creator. The text says he loved his wife so much he couldn't bear the thought of her facing the consequence alone. So he chose her over God's direct word. He threw away God's command.
And that specific act, loving the creature more than the Creator, is presented as the root sin, the original screw-up of the will.
That's exactly how it's framed, the original disordering. And the sources draw a sharp contrast with what could have happened.
What was the alternative path?
Had Adam chosen obedience, that act of alignment would have been rewarded. God would have revealed himself more deeply, given Adam a richer experiential understanding of divine love.
And the result for Adam himself?
His free will would have been completed, nene, perfected, without any pain or suffering.
Completed, meaning solidified in goodness.
Yes, eternally stabilized in the right choice. The command wasn't just a restriction, it was the very mechanism offered for painless perfection. Instead, he chose the path that led to suffering because his love was disordered.
Okay, so Adam's failure was misplaced love towards another creature. Now, Hillel, the fallen angel, Satan, his failure seems different. It wasn't about loving someone else too much.
No, Hillel's was directed inward. It was about pride, self-worship. Again, God respected his free will. He allowed Hillel the choice, love God or rebel. Hillel was warned. He knew the stakes. His wasn't a sin of ignorance.
He is deliberate.
Willful malice, the source implies. It pinpoints the cause as Hillel choosing his own greed, his own desires over God's established order. That led to pride.
And that pride corrupted him.
It led to the self-defilement of his own wisdom, is how the text puts it. He took the incredible gift of angelic intellect and basically turned it inward, using it to glorify himself, thinking he knew better than the Creator.
He defiled his own wisdom, that interesting phrasing.
Isn't it? He corrupted the gift itself. And just like Adam, Hillel had an easier path available. If he'd prioritized loving God over loving his own ambition and status,
Things would have been different.
his path would have been smoother, easier. His free will could have been perfected, just like the angels who didn't fall, without all the suffering and chaos his rebellion unleashed.
So whether it's loving another creature more than God, like Adam, or loving yourself more than God, like Hillel, the outcome is similar. Free will, when it turns away from the Creator's command, leads to fragmentation, incompleteness, disaster.
Exactly. These stories aren't just ancient tales, they're illustrations of a core principle in this framework. True freedom, true completion, is only found in alignment with the divine will, not in breaking away from it.
Which leads directly into how knowledge works in this system. If choice is everything, then what you choose to seek actually determines what you get to know. That's section V, the dynamics of seeking knowledge and consequence.
Yeah, the sources are quite philosophical here. They state clearly, God doesn't force himself on anyone. He doesn't reveal himself to those who actively choose not to know him. You have to want it. You have to orient your will towards his.
The choice is presented as very black and white, isn't it?
Very much so. Obey. And you come to know God's will, his purpose, his love, or rebel, and you get to know what the source calls the sweetness of sin's yukai.
It acknowledges sin as attractive then.
Oh, yes. It doesn't pretend it isn't. Sin offers an immediate reward, a temporary pleasure, a sweetness. That's its lure. But each path has its ultimate, unavoidable consequence. Obedience leads to more knowledge in life. Rebellion leads to deeper ignorance and eventually death. It follows that principle of increase we see elsewhere.
To those who have, more will be given idea from the parables about the kingdom's secrets.
Exactly that principle. If you have meaning, if you possess knowledge, or more fundamentally, if you consistently demonstrate the will to obey, you'll receive more. Your understanding grows, you get more insight. It's a positive feedback loop.
And the flip side.
Those who don't seek, don't obey, don't have that orientation. They'll lose even the little understanding they thought they had. Their ignorance deepens. It's a negative spiral.
So for the obedient, it's a process of confirmation.
Yes. God confirms that their choice, which might initially feel difficult or like a sacrifice, wasn't a mistake. As they keep obeying, God reveals more, assuring them through direct experience that they chose correctly. It builds confidence and joy.
It moves from just belief to actual knowledge, experiential knowledge.
Right. Their free will finds its completion and rest in that revealed truth, but for the rebellious.
They follow the negative loop. They chase the sweetness of sin, but the knowledge they gain ends up condemning them.
Pretty much. The sources say they will eventually come to know God, but only in the context of judgment. They'll see the truth, realize their choices, their greed, their harm to others were fundamentally wrong.
But it's too late then.
It's too late to change the consequence. They can't escape the results of their own malice, because that's the path they chose. They'll understand God's word was true. They'll see the structure they rejected.
But their will is still stuck in rebellion.
Tragically, yes. They know the truth, they see the outcome, but that core rebellious choice remains unchanged. They get the knowledge, but only when it serves to confirm their judgment, not save them.
It's the ultimate irony, really. Knowing but being unable to change because the choice was already made and solidified.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the final act in this cosmic drama. Section 6, the completion of creation and the final judgment.
And this part argues that judgment, specifically extinction for the wicked, isn't just about punishment. It's presented as cosmically necessary.
Absolutely necessary for the perfection of the cosmos. The source lays down a fundamental law, and it's severe. The one who tramples their neighbor must die.
Why so absolute?
Well, think about the alternative presented in the text. If someone who consistently harms others, who tramples them, was allowed to live forever, what would that mean for their victims?
They'd suffer eternally. Or live in eternal fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the entire universe would effectively operate under what the source calls the law of the jungle. Wayatson, might makes right forever.
So, allowing perpetual offenders to exist eternally would corrupt the very nature of creation.
It would undermine the foundation of love that creation is supposed to be built on. So judgment becomes necessary to protect that foundation. Sin, and those who embody unrepentant sin, including Satan, simply cannot be allowed to exist forever. Their existence is fundamentally incompatible with a perfected creation.
And this leads to a specific view on the nature of the death. The unrighteous face, it's not eternal suffering, but...
Extinction. This is a really critical detail in the source. They pay their penalty, yes, but they don't live eternally afterwards. They are consumed, destroyed, annihilated.
So the punishment fits the crime, balances the books.
Balances the cosmic ledger, precisely. But the final end is non-existence. This ensures that the problem of sin is completely, totally removed from reality forever.
And this ultimate fate is called the second death toll.
Yes, that's the term used for the final state of all offenders. The fearful, unbelieving, abominable, murderers, sorcerers, idolaters, liars, they're all cast into the lake of fire and sulfur, which is the second death.
And the punishment leading up to that extinction is precise.
The sources insist on its precision. Offenders will pay the full cost and auto for. It's not arbitrary. It's calculated based on the extent of their willful rebellion and the harm they caused. A debt payment.
But then there's that crucial theological point you mentioned earlier, connecting back to Adam and hell.
Right. Punishment does not complete free will. Only love for completes free will.
Meaning the suffering itself doesn't fix them.
No, it's purely retribution. It pays the debt they incurred through disobedience. It doesn't refine them, doesn't perfect their choice, doesn't bring them to a state of completion. They aren't made whole by suffering. They just pay what's owed before being extinguished.
That maintains the integrity of the whole love-based system, doesn't it? Perfection only comes through willing alignment with love.
Exactly. Suffering brings justice, settles accounts, but it doesn't bring purification or existential wholeness. That's reserved for the obedient.
And as part of this final judgment, the ultimate enemy has to go too.
Death itself. It's the final enemy to be destroyed. As the ultimate consequence of sin, it has to be eliminated for creation to be truly finished.
And who accomplishes this?
The Son, Christ. Having dealt with sin through the cross, he's the one who perfects the cosmos. Remember, by becoming a creature, he gained the unique authority to inherit and cleanse creation, time, and space itself.
Which leads to that final grand transfer of power described in the sources.
Yes. The Son, having inherited the now perfected cosmos as a result of his work as a creature, then submits that entire perfected creation back to the Father.
So that God can be all in all.
Exactly. It signifies the end of the temporary measures, the complete fulfillment of the Father's original plan. And in that final state, only those whose names are in the book of life remain.
Which means?
Creatures who, in their freedom, chose to align with the commandment of love. That's who remains. The result is a completed creation, finally and forever free from sin, sorrow, pain, and death. The law of the jungle is gone for good.
Okay, wow. That's an incredibly comprehensive, if intense, picture. Let's try and synthesize the absolute core takeaways for you, the listener.
Yeah, let's boil it down. We really saw three fundamental pillars holding up this whole structure in the source material. First,
everything, existence itself, is grounded in the Father's love for the Son. All life, all reality, flows through Christ as the single channel.
Second pillar. Free will is real and respected, but it forces a choice accept or reject that flow of love. And obedience, specifically to the command to love, becomes the ultimate measure of genuine election. Election isn't forced, it's based on God foreknowing who would freely choose submission.
right. And the third pillar.
The necessary completion of creation demands the final, total destruction that extinction of sin, death, and everyone who remains willfully tied to them. This is essential to protect the perfected creation from ever falling back into the law of the jungle.
That brings us to our final thought, something to leave you mulling over. We talk about the culmination, the Son becoming a creature, inheriting and perfecting time and space, and then returning it all to the Father, returning to equality.
Think about the sheer scale of that idea. A temporary stepping down, an abdication of eternal status within creation, specifically to win, inherit, and perfect that same creation.
What does that suggest about existence itself, about time and space and its relationship to the eternal? It implies the incarnation wasn't just a rescue plan. Maybe it was more like a necessary strategic maneuver, a way to elevate creation itself to a state of perfect love and submission, a state that could only be achieved by the Son participating as both creator and creature.
Turning the universe into, a testament to the power of free, uncoerced love, eventually choosing alignment, proving it was possible.
Exactly. Proving the genuine choice can lead to eternal obedience, not just rebellion. That paradox, achieving perfection through temporary limitation, is definitely something worth thinking about long after we finish here.
Indeed it is. We really encourage you to think more on these ideas, the nature of perfected free will versus forced obedience. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.